One of the most common questions I get asked as a professional chess player and the coach is, what openings should I play? Zura, how should I start the game? Hi, I'm International Master Zura Jawahadze, and I have worked with hundreds of students from all the way beginners to some very accomplished players like Andy Woodward, who became youngest grandmaster in the world not too long ago. In this video, I want to teach you opening repertoires that will lay solid foundation and allow you to compound your knowledge over time. Let's take a moment to notice my good physics understanding to hold the blackboard in the position that it is right now. I hope it does not fall during this recording. Compounding effect in chess. We have to understand the power of compounding effect in chess, just like in life. So one of the qualities that allow you to get better, in my opinion, in everything is adding onto your existing knowledge consistently. That's a big part of it. If you don't put consistent effort, we cannot expect to get better at anything, and chess is no different. So we want to perfect pattern recognition to a level where our brain does it unconsciously, almost like a muscle. It did. Almost like a muscle memory. Okay, so we do not have to rethink it every single time. That is when you learn openings the right way, and each game reinforces what you already know. You're not starting from the scratch, you are building. The reason I call this healthy repertoires is also by choice. You want to have a good understanding what is wrong on and what is right, so you do not end up like a plastic bag in the wind, going whichever direction the wind blows. What I mean by that is, if you start with sidelines, online win in 5 moves, you may win few games and you may feel good about yourself, but eventually you get to the point where your opponents don't fall for these cheap tricks and you end up in bad positions, lost positions all the time. You start thinking this thing is impossible and frustrated, disappointed, and helpless. That is exactly what we are trying to avoid. So let's get started. We're going to be starting with white colors, but before I get to concrete chess moves, I want to emphasize the importance of 3 golden principles of opening play. Number 1 right here is take the center, fight for the center. You may be wondering, what is the center if you're just getting started? Well, chess is played on 64 squares, 8 by 8, so these 4 squares make it naturally center of the board. So we are going to take control of it with king's pawn forward 2 squares, best by test. That is the most squares you can control with the single first move here. 4 squares for the queen, 5 for the bishop, 2 for the pawn, so 11 total. No other first move gives you control of as many squares as pawn to e4. Okay, if you're wondering why that is the best move. Now, black a lot of times responds with the balancing the center to pawn e5. That is also my recommendation for black here. And that leads us to the second principle. Develop your pieces, preferably towards the center, not on the sides, because center is where a lot is going to be happening and where you want your pieces to have. So we develop towards the center, attack opponent's pawn here. They most likely defend with knight to c6, also my recommendation. And next we bring our bishop to c4. Italian game, why to c4? Because we target opponent's most vulnerable square, pawn on f7, that is only defended by the king at the moment. And we have already brought our 2 pieces in the game, knight and the bishop. 2 minor pieces. You want to develop your minor pieces first and then major pieces, which are queens and rooks. Let's say black plays something else here, probably like knight to f6, or let's say bishop to c5. That leads us to the third principle, which is castle. secure your king as soon as possible, because guess what happens when both sides bring pawns in the center? Most likely they are going to get traded and these two files are going to open up. When that happens, you want your king secure away from the center so you can bring your rooks and attack the opponent's king. Okay, or if there is no king, then attack whatever is there. So 3 golden principles: fight for the center, develop your pieces towards the center, castle, secure your king. If you follow those principles, no matter you know exact move order or not, what opponent has played, you are going to do well. Okay, so remember those principles, live by them, and now let's add onto those. Okay, so let's now give you overview what is it to expect from this course. Most importantly, the schematic thinking. And what I mean by that is you do not want to memorize moves just randomly. You want to understand ideas behind these moves. Where do you want to place your pieces? What are they doing there? Why are they going where they're going? Okay, if you understand this, specific move orders will not baffle you and will not confuse you and have you asking yourself, what do I do now? Okay, so what do we want to do out of this position is, let's say they play bishop c5. Okay, I'm going to be discussing concrete moves here in detail. Then you are going to castle, and next thing, we want to play pawn to d3 to defend this pawn. Bishop is outside of pawn chain, knight is outside, already developed on an active square. Then we are going to play c3, secure the center. Okay, we're also going to play h3. Then we're gonna bring the rook to e1. We're gonna bring the knight to d2, f1, g3 on the king side where it is located nicely and actively. And then we strike in the center with pawn to d4. Okay, so we have full control of the center. All our pieces are standing nicely, and we are ready to engage whatever kind of fight comes on our way. Okay, which will also depend on what your opponent is doing. Okay, now let's discuss concrete ideas here. Bishop c5 is the most common move. That is the standard Italian, and we'll play a move like, it's actually black to move right now. Let's say if they attack this pawn, we'll defend it. Let's say they play something like this, we'll play immediately c3 here. Now most likely they will play either a6 or go short castle or go like h6 here. Again, the specific move orders don't matter as much as the idea what we're trying to do. Okay, h3 to secure our g4 square. This is important. Let's say they castle, now we bring our knight. Say they play pawn to a6 so they can tack the bishop back. Now another important concept for the entire Italian game in Spanish opening, a lot of openings with white actually that's followed after pawn to e4. This light squared bishop is a very important piece. Okay, it's a very valuable piece, so we want to take care of it. Right now, if we don't do anything about it, this knight is gonna attack it and we're gonna lose it, right? So we are going to retreat back to b3, so if it gets attacked, we can tack it back to c2, for example, like bishop e6, right? We're going to tack it back to c2. Let's say they play normal developing moves, just like we did here. Then we're going to go knight f1. We're going to bring this knight to g3. We are ready to strike in the center here. Okay, this exact move order is actually a blunder for black, because now they are going to lose one of their minor pieces, either takes and then retreat back or immediately retreats, pawn to d5, and we win a piece. I cut Grandmaster Arjen Tari, actually #2 Grandmaster in Norway and the former World Junior Champion, so it gives you an idea. Even very best players can fall for simple tricks like this when you play in a healthy way. Okay, you have all your pieces developed in a healthy way. Okay, now let's say they move the bishop back to b6, or let's say a7 here. We play knight g3, pawn to d4, and we have reached our ideal setup here. All our pieces are standing nicely. We have not traded a single piece so far, which suggests that the middle game is going to be very rich. There will be a lot of ideas, a lot of maneuvering, strategical ideas, and tactical ideas and tactics itself. So now this should give you a better understanding why I call this healthy repertoires. All right, we are not playing some flashy, fancy moves to trying to trick our opponent. We are simply developing our pieces on good squares and getting ready to play, well, a relatively long game. You will be surprised how fast here things can go wrong for black, but we are not trying to trap our opponent in 5 moves and in 10 moves, okay? If you approach the game that way, I promise you, I guarantee you, okay, you are going to compound your knowledge and you are going to add consistently on your existing knowledge, okay? And that's what I am trying to accomplish with this repertoire series slash course. All right. Now, let's see how this can be applied if they play different move orders. For example, knight to f6, they attack our central pawn on e4, right? Now, very common move here is knight g5, fried lever, but again, that is heavily dependent on black making a mistake. We're not playing hope chess, so my suggestion is pawn to d3. Simply defend this pawn. Whatever they play, bishop e7 or bishop c5, we are going to do the same thing. Short castle, c3, h3, knight d2. Right now, actually, we could play rook e1 and d4 immediately here, but still, I'm going to illustrate the point here. Actually, I did forget bringing the bishop back here. So let's say when you play a6 here, you're already trying to trap this, right? So we're gonna move this bishop back. For example, you play it like that. We're gonna move the rook. You move the bishop again. We move the knight to g3. We are ready to play d4 next. Now, if you attack it somehow, then and try something like that, we're still ready to go for d4. And whether we want to play d5 or close the center and then go on the king side, or simply bishop e3 like that, b3, queen d2, rook a d1. A lot of ideas here, and again, all the pieces are still on the board, so a lot of fight ahead of us. Some people think that this approach to the opening is boring, let's say, compared to like sacrificing the pawn on move 2, but I disagree. Again, you are thinking long term, okay, with this opening repertoire. When you go for the gambits, you are thinking very short term and instant gratification compared to the long term gratification, which is going to be consistently gaining rating and consistently improving to your best game. Okay, now that being said, I said I was going to mention here sidelines, which is a lot of times that's what's going to be happening when you play a position under 1,000. They'll be playing h6 to stop knight g5 ideas, and in that case, I recommend the same thing. Short castle here, but if opponent wastes a lot of time, that you're gonna be seeing a lot, and if you've been watching my rating climb series, you may have seen it. When opponent wastes time, then you can actually immediately counterattack the center with moves like here, then d4. In that case, the knight maneuvering here you may not need, because if you already have a lot more pieces developed than your opponent, that gives us ability to start an attack here. So in that case, we would go for c3, d4 here. So yeah, h6 is very common. Another very common move is like playing like bishop b4. This usually encourages us to play c3, d4 even faster. And then they go back here, and then they allow us to play d4 also with the tempo. Obviously, if that's the case, we are very happy here. If they give us this strong center again, we are very happy. If they play move like d6, I think this is actually not as bad as the other lines here. Now I would probably recommend here going actually knight c3. This is the only difference. I guess c3 d4 is also common. Here, c3 d4 would be more in line to what we recommend in this course, but I think right now knight c3 sets up for one of the most beautiful tricks here, which is h3, and if bishop moves to h5, then we can take knight to e5. What is happening with this? Well, that is the legal's mate. If bishop takes our queen, we can take bishop f7, and king gets checkmated in the center of the board. Okay, it can go anywhere. So for that reason, I think that could be justified. But again, this is kind of hope chess here. Although it works when you play correct, and on top of it, you have a set trap that opponent may fall for. That is a good way to do it. Now, if you're worsening your position, if your opponent plays correctly, that's the problem, okay? Because a lot of times good players are gonna avoid that trap, and you are ending up with the worst position. So right now, this actually works, because when we take the bishop and they take our bishop, we can have the check on b5, okay? And then take this knight back, let's say when they play like c6, for example. And now we won a pawn, healthy central pawn here. Okay, so again, not as much about particular move orders. Up to 1,000, I guarantee you, all you need is the solid understanding of where your pieces go. And I hope this video serves as the reference point to where those pieces go. And I do have a detailed course on what is going to be my recommendations on each different move order. I'll be having video and PGN format, so I have that available in my school group. I'm definitely going to be included the link. Make sure you join, and if you want to get the PGN, I'll have details how to get them. Now let's talk about what you can expect in the full course and what are my recommendations on different openings, as I have it noted on the whiteboard here. So let's expand on it. Italian game, solid approach. So far what we have discussed, that is all you need to cross 1,000 elo. Once you accomplish that, then we can spice up our opening repertoire a little more, add an aggressive twist to it. And in that regard, I am suggesting Italian gambit. All right, so bishop to c4, and let's say knight f6, then we go d4, or we go d4 immediately. And when they take the pawn, we go bishop to c4 afterwards. We leave this pawn temporarily. Now, a lot of players here will go wrong immediately. Okay, probably 80% of your opponents. And I have a video where I play players at different rating ranges, all the way from 500 to like 2,000, and you will see, I don't think a single player have been able to play this correctly, and white gets a huge advantage, almost in the style of romantic era of chess, basically sacrificing pieces and checkmating the opponent's king before move 20. Okay, so for example, like bishop e7, looks very natural move. We go c3 to attack the pawn, and if you take, you're already lost, because after queen d5 you can defend the f7 pawn and checkmate. Well, knight h6, but then we just take the knight. So that's one of the examples. If knight f6, which is the most common move, you will see a lot of moves like h6, and again, I think like this move, like c3 gives us an advantage, or castle and then takes, or c3 here. I like actually idea of sacrificing another pawn here with c3, so then we get even more initiative and faster development. Now it's already 3 versus 1 piece developed, okay? And again, we're like short castle, rook e1, e5, queen d5, knight d5. This move suggests itself, so it's a lot harder to play with black. Okay, now if they play correctly, knight f6, right? My suggestion is short castle. We'll leave another pawn. When they take there, we go rook to e1, attacking the knight, pinning the knight. Most likely they'll defend it with the pawn to d5, and now we take the pawn on d5. queen takes back, knight goes to c3. Now double pin, all right, attacking the knight and the queen. But black is not able to capture with either. If pawn takes, we take the queen. Knight cannot take, that's illegal. It's pinned. So usually black queen will have to move away. Then we will take the knight with the knight, threatening now again double check. And that's not only going to win a queen, but it's going to be a checkmate. Let's say if you play, like, get distracted and play a move like this, knight check and king f8, king can end up getting mated in the next like 2-3 moves here. Okay, so that just shows the possible danger if black loses the focus here, which happens a lot. Let's be real. Under, I would say, like 1300 level, or even like 1400 level, this can happen very easily. Now, if they do play correctly here, then white still has some initiative. One of the line goes h6, bishop f6, for example, and now this bishop is just chilling on f6. You can't touch it because knight takes, again, is going to be a fork. If you go queen g6, there is something wrong with this move, actually. Queen g6. I think now knight h4 attacking the queen, and queen may have to run away to h7, queen d3. Basically, white has a lot of initiative. Mainly, what this is about is we're not playing hope chess. Okay, this is legitimately, our position is healthy. We are creating threats, and if opponent goes wrong early on, that's kind of bonus. So that is against the Italian, against bishop c5 here. My recommendation is going to be c3. If you take there, we have, boom, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, queen d5, check. Now we are double attacking. Then we're going to take the bishop, but not immediately. First check, and then take here to initiate additional weaknesses into the black's position. Now we're going to see other common responses against the king's pawn to e4. And first, let's review pawn to d5, which is a Scandinavian defense, one of the most common responses at early stages. We will simply take it, and there is a rule in the opening: do not bring your queen out too early, because it's going to get attacked and you're going to waste time. And this is a prime example of that. If you can develop your pieces while attacking opponent's pieces, always a desirable thing to do. That is called winning a tempo. Right now we win the tempo with knight attacking the queen here. If queen is being stubborn and tries to basically prove its worth by checking more, you're only going to lose more time here. Let's say knight now also wins a tempo by attacking the queen. You have to move again, short castle. Let's say d4 next, and white has finished the opening phase. As we see, met those three principles. Center is under control, pieces are developed, king is secure at castle, while black still has a long way to go. Okay, so that's going to be no good for black, no bueno. All right, now queen back to d8 or a5 is probably the most common responses here. We bring our knight out, or we could also start actually pawn to d4. This is what I prefer, so we don't allow bishop g4 immediately. Knight to f6, and then we go knight to f3. Now this bishop is going to come out either on f5 or g4. Let's say it comes to f5, and my suggestion here is to keep it simple. Develop your bishop to c4, e6. We go short castle, and again, we're the first one to finish the development. All our pieces are standing nicely, and we are ready for what is to come. We could probably bring the rook in the center of the board here, threaten to play d5. If bishop b4, we can play bishop d2, defend this guy, then kick the knight away, and we have a healthy, happy position. Next, we are going to talk about the Caro-Kann defense, one of the most popular choices at all levels due to the influence of a lot of creators, but mainly one and only Levi Rosman, aka Gotham Chess. That is his pet line, strengthening the center here with the C pawn, and you give us the space, we take it. Pawn to e5. Advanced variation of Caro-Kann defense, most critical in my opinion to play for the advantage with white. Now, black has two main moves here, bishop to f5 to get the bishop outside of pawn chain before they play e6 and lock this bishop inside the pawn chain. That is going to be seen in French defense, but c6 then doesn't make sense. Black wasted a tempo here playing c6 because eventually they have to play c5 to target this d4 pawn. So that is also another popular choice in this very line, pawn to c5. I believe that's what Levy's recommendation is. Let's see bishop f5 first here. We're gonna go h4, try to make this bishop uncomfortable. So if you're careless, play e6, it's gonna get trapped. So the correct move against the h4 is to play either h5 or h6. One of those moves are probably the most popular at the moment. And on this, we go c4. This only becoming popular recently, very trendy, I would say. Wesley So defeated a very nice game, Sam Shankland, at the US Championships 2025. I think that game continued with knight to c3, and after takes here, simply bishop takes, knight d7, or maybe it was knight e7 first, but knight e2, and bishop is gonna go, I believe, to either g5 or e3. Knight is gonna go to g3, short castle, and black is very cramped. It's gonna struggle finding good places for the pieces. Actually, knight in the game went here, so I think bishop was brought to e7, but g3 simply to defend it. And white has a lot of space. Now it's still double-edged, but I think it's a lot easier to play this position with white. Okay. Now, if black plays c5 here, we take it. You give the pawn, we take it. You give the space, we take it. Basically, all these cases we take it back. So knight c6 to attack the pawn. Our pawn center here is little weakened, but we have to understand which pawn to capture. Okay, so on this move, our move is pawn to c3, and there is a very nice trick here. If you try to take advantage of this pin immediately, that's actually a trap, because we sacrifice the queen, but we gain it back with some interest. You have to block it with your queen. You lose the piece. Already you're gonna lose another one, and it's just all over there. Knight f7 is also going to be the threat after king is on d8. Okay, so I have a lot of students actually that have won games straight up out of the opening like this. A very common trick to fall for. If they do not fall for it, play e6 here, defend this pawn. We defend the pawn on c5. Okay, so the key element here is to understand which pawn to hold on to. Okay, e5 or c5. All right, now if they, let's say, take here and then they take on e5, we go bishop b5 check. They have to block it. Now c4, short castle, knight c3, rook d1, and we're having a lot of fun. Okay, you can't play, you can't touch this pawn because the c6 is hanging with the check. So again, not letting off the gas. Here there was no knight e5 because of the, again, queen a4 check, and winning a piece probably right now. If you move the knight, then you're gonna lose the bishop on g4. Another trick to fall for our opponent. Advanced Caro-Kann. That's what we're gonna talk in detail about. French defense is next. Caro-Kann and French defense actually borrow ideas from each other a lot, since they unite with the same goal of strengthening the d5 pawn. So again, we go for the advanced variation, pawn to e5, gain the space, and get this strong center with two pawns. When they attack our d4 pawn, we're going to defend it with c3, knight c6, knight to f3, bishop d7 is probably most common. We keep it simple again, get ready to castle. If they build up the pressure on this d4 pawn, we're going to use the help of this knight from a3. When they go to f5, we bring it to c2, and now we have that pawn safely defended. Next, probably like a3, b4, or g4 is also an idea. Bishop d3 is going to be an idea, like rook b1. And depending how black plays, again, we have a very healthy position. Last but not least, we have the Sicilian defense, which is a popular choice for a lot of sharp dynamic players. So my recommendation against it is knight f3, pawn to d6, and we do not trade our central pawn immediately, which I do think is the critical choice. But for this course, my recommendation is pawn to c3, delayed alloping. And the reason behind it is because world's very best player, Magnus Carlsen, played this against me last year, which made me think whom to learn from better than the man himself. I played knight to f6 to attack this pawn on e4, pawn to h3. Goal of this system is to play Sicilian defense in the style of the Italian game or the Spanish opening, which is basically put the bishop on d3, then c2, short castle, pawn to d4, rook to e1, enjoy the center, enjoy the nice position. So let's say if black plays knight to c6 here, we're going to play bishop d3. If they try to get the bishop out, we're going to attack the bishop back to c2. Next, we are ready to take control of the center with d4 here next, rook e1 to strengthen the center even more. Depending whether c pawns are traded or not, we're going to decide where to develop our knight. Most likely it's going to be on c3. Like Italian, we could go knight d2, knight f1, g3, but it's not going to be doing much in view of this pawn on g6, so probably c3 is going to be a better place. In that game, I took on d4 and played knight b4, tried to get the light-squared bishop of Magnus, but he played bishop b3, setting up another trap here. If black captures on e4, white plays queen e1, attacking both knights and winning one of them. All right, I did not take on e4, continued with d5, but long story short, white has a better pawn structure here, good center, good minor pieces, and all the targets for rest of his pieces. Let's say bishop to g5, f4, queen d2, rook d1, and life is very bright for white. That was a good rhyme, right? All right, I think that will do for the general overview of the course, and really two major reasons why I think this is going to be useful for anyone, and I will have my students also using this, is number one, you're gonna have an actual file that you can learn from, go back and review after you play and make mistakes to see what you could have done better. So no more second guessing. We are eliminating second guessing of, oh, what is the right thing to do here? No more of that. All right, we know what we're doing. We know what are the plans and ideas behind our moves. And number two, you can share this with other group members once you join the school group. Okay, share these ideas, play training games with them, get feedback, give feedback, and learn and grow together. Okay, I think that is the crucial step into learning new opening efficiently. Let's get to it. Let's sprint to 1500 ELO and beyond. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you see follow-up videos on games that I play against all ranges of opponents, starting from 500 going to 2020, 200, to see these theoretical positions applied into practice.